What's going on, everybody? This is Chris with Inglorious Gamer. I'm joined today by Monty Oum.
Kathleen Zuelch.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Hey, thank you.
Hey.
So
close.
that's perfect. You guys are great.
We're at RTX 2013.
Yes, we are. So we checked out RWBY the other day. You guys premiered it. It looks awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, you guys. It looks wonderful. What was it like, kind of getting the crowd response from it? Was it rewarding?
My God. Just so you know, I cried when you guys got the standing O. No, it's like a mom watching her child, take the first step.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, I gotta say. Now I don't want to in any way sound like jaded about this, because I've done premieres in the past of videos or clips of things we've made, like Red vs. Blue, older works of mine, where I would finish a sequence of some video, show it at some sort of convention in front of 5,000 people, 8,000 people, whatever, people screaming like they always do, and that never gets old. My favorite thing, I would still love it. My favorite thing this time around was sharing it with everyone else, my colleagues, my friends, who all worked on this project. Essentially, Dustin's mom. Dustin told me his mom was crying. Jordan told me he got teary-eyed.
Matt and I were in the audience crying.
Miles and Carrie, who wrote the jokes that people laughed at, they're so worried. They're always on such pins and needles about, are they going to like this stuff that we made? And every time a laugh comes up, they're like, vindication.
There you go.
Every time. And it's just that, to finally share this with my friends this time around versus doing the solo act was much more rewarding.
I know you've previously worked on stuff like Dead Fantasy. I used to watch a ton of Dead Fantasy, and that was awesome. And Haloid before that. I was doing a little bit of research, and there was a point in time where you were just working on Haloid, and you were working at Kinko's or something. That's like right. That. What was it like when you when Midway was like, hey, we want to work with you?
I never made these movies because I thought they would get me jobs.
I didn't know you worked at Kinko's.
That's right. I had been working 2 jobs, living a pretty regular life of actually commuting to work, going to the gym, having a girlfriend, doing all the normal things. But I would pound away at Haloid every night and day. I would do the planning for it in my commute to work by just listening to the soundtrack. I would keep my laptop beside me, set things to render while I was at work. At that time, I was working for Kinko's and an online catalog, and I managed to pound out Haloid in 2 months because of just clarity and vision. And when Midway approached me, I didn't know that would happen. I thought I would just make a cool video, people would see it, and the rest would happen on its own. I didn't know what the rest was. I just knew something would happen.
Just make more.
I didn't think anyone as high as the company that made Mortal Kombat would come to me and say, we need you to do all that cool stuff for us. And my response, literally, I remember the email with the creative director at that time, was like, I said, are you sure I'm good enough? And he said, you are absolutely good enough. I'm like, okay. And it's a funny story too, because at the same time, not only a few days after, the folks from Red vs. Blue, a show that I'd loved since season 1, contacted me. They gave me a call, and they just wanted to chat. I only found out 5 years later that they actually were trying to hire me. But at the time, I was just like, oh, it's those cool guys who make that show I like. Talking to me. I thought they were just being cool. And then, the end of the conversation is like, okay, bye. And then Bernie, I hear later, after now working here, Bernie was like, well, that didn't go well. And I was like, that was awesome. So it's like, okay. And then, after having done Midway and then another game company job, Namco Bandai Games after that, and finishing a game, I finally catch up with Bernie again. And this was at San Diego Comic-Con. I'd finished Afro Samurai, the game for Namco, and an email thread for a panel at Comic-Con had started. And there were a few names on the list of various, of some stature web people, and my name was on it because they wanted me to speak about my work. And Bernie was on it. And I'd never heard of Comic-Con at the time. I was just, Comic-Con, it's like another con. I'd just finished one con. I wanted to get back to work.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know. But then I saw Bernie's name on the email, and I was like, I want to meet Bernie. And Bernie told me he saw my name on the email. He's like, I got to see him. And so that was the first time we met at the panel at Comic-Con. And knowing I was going to see Bernie, I was like, let me do some tests. Or not even do some tests. I met Bernie with some tests in mind. I said, Bernie, let me try some things out for Red vs. Blue. I hadn't kept up with season 7 and 8, 6 and 7 at the time, but I knew they were still running. I was like, let me try some things. And so I gave some tests to Bernie a few weeks later, and then the conversation started about me coming to Austin and working for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
For us,
Working for
Working
them.
for them, right?
Yeah. Remember when you first came by when I was
Yeah.
working on season 8?
Oh my.
Incognito, because I was in secret for like 6 months because I didn't want, if it became public that I was working for Red versus Blue, you think show, animator. Obviously, you put the two together, they're doing something animated. So for a long time, you could track back to podcasts, and it's just small sleight of hand mentions of this new guy
This new
who
guy.
fell asleep at his desk, wasn't asleep at, who was asleep in that morning meeting that day.
It's funny you mention that. I know like people know that you're like a workaholic and you're,
Yeah.
you know, crazy schedules. Is there like a particular brand of coffee or energy drink that you want to plug to?
we have an espresso machine in the office, which is
Right.
We love
perhaps my favorite. It saves me the $10-20 a day of Starbucks. Although
Right.
unlike lately, though, it is bloody hot in the summer here, and I'm just loving the frappuccinos. But we love our Nespresso machine, day in, day out. It's like 60 cents a capsule. That's all I need. Yeah, it's great.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So he'll work really hard. I'm like,
Yep.
"Look what I just bought you."
She handed me a box of like 50 capsules. That's me good. You know, that lasts me a good month or so. And yeah, caffeine every day.
Every day. Do you do really like those 5-hour things?
No,
Or?
no. Those just the coffee's good enough. Sometimes having my coffee is enough motivation. Sometimes I like having my coffee more than I like drinking my coffee.
Yeah, just the moment. It's all about the
Yeah.
And Kathleen, I was doing some research. I was kind of reading online. You produced on stuff like Iron Giant and stuff like that. How did you fall into Red versus Blue?
Matt Holum, who's the CEO now, actually worked for me on Scooby-Doo, the live-action film. I hired him as my second. He was he created a FileMaker Pro IT tracking software for me, and so then he was a great guy. And I said, whatever I move to, I will hire you. So then I went on to Clifford, the Big Red Dog film, and I hired him for that. And during that film, he came to me and he said, "Hey, buddies of mine, we're doing this show. Let me show it to you." And I have a son, so I knew what Halo was.
Yeah.
And he showed me like the first 5 episodes, and I said, "This is really funny," but I said, "You need to have a tough chick, and I want to do the voice." He's like, "Really? You would do the voice?" I'm like, "Yeah." So Bernie called and he says, "Well, we have this character who we haven't written male or female because it's got the voice filter." And so I auditioned, and he's like, "Okay, we'll make Tex a woman, and you're going to be the person." And I was like, "Right on." So it was like that easy. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, you just kind of fell into it.
I did.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I really did.
Cool. Now I know you've worked on other stuff before, Red versus Blue and all that, and you guys, you premiered RWBY here. It seems like a lot of your stuff is kind of influenced by like anime style. You look like you're straight out of an anime. What's it like? Is working on like kind of a more traditional anime something you've always wanted to do?
Perhaps, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, very much so. Being an anime fan
Right.
for a majority of my life, but also, I mean, to be a little detached is important as well. I mean, I love the project,
Yeah.
and by all means, it's a dream come true. But also, there's choices on it for a production standpoint in terms of the economy of the project. Anime itself, the history of what it is and what it is now, lends to cheap, good production. It's very economical.
Mhm.
It's very it's something you can deliver consistently and has a wide range where you can also vary it up when you don't have the budget for it. So to do it as a project, I felt like it would be a good fit for our company in that our audience is constantly evolving, the landscape is constantly evolving, we as a company and people are constantly evolving, and it felt like the right time. And I also felt like it would be good for our company to have another project under our belt.
Yeah, it looks awesome. I mean, the premiere was fantastic. The when you guys did the intro, like that typical intro, I got chills. I was like, this is fantastic. It's amazing.
I think it's going to be nice too. It'll broaden our fan base. I mean, at this point, Red versus Blue and Rooster Teeth has notoriously been like 90% male demographics to this point in time. So now RWBY will hopefully open that gateway to more of the female membership, sponsorships, viewerships for us.
Definitely right. I mean, I'm a big fan of Achievement Hunter, and all those sexy lads bring in a good amount of female viewers. I witnessed it first person at New York Comic Con one year, where me and Ray were at the booth, and every other girl or every third girl was a girl wanting to see Ray, and it's like they're characters that I adore, and I definitely think they bring in a new audience. So I think side by side we have a show type production that's for an audience that wasn't here before. I think RWBY will be a great show for an audience also that it wasn't here before. We're getting a lot of that this con of people who said, I came here just because of RWBY.
Yeah.
And it's like, one of the things I, swore out of this show was the swearing because I wanted it to be, a much more responsible show.
Right.
There's also, built onto the design of the characters, they wear skirts, but there will never be an upskirt, for example. As I get older, I feel, to lend to more responsible filmmaking and storytelling, despite what
people want to, are used to seeing, right?
But also, just to have a show that belongs to a generation out there that is right now discovering themselves. And I've mentioned this on multiple panels, is that, the story of growing up is something we all have. And so this will be I think if the show, luckily enough, lasts 5 years, that our audience will grow 5 years with it. Our characters should grow 5 years older. One of my least favorite things about animes is once you're past the age of 18, your life is over.
Yeah.
I want our characters to be 30 or 40 at some point. That would be a splendid thing, to grow old with your characters.
That's an awesome way to look at it. Yeah, for sure. You play games like Final Fantasy. The hero of the whole world is 14 years old.
Yeah.
And
There's anime has a lot of my least favorite things that are pretty counter evolution. They're counter growth. They live essentially. Japan as a xenophobic culture is very counter expansive. They only evolve when they need to, and sometimes it takes an external source. Sometimes industrial revolution type things, where they're forced to evolve, and then they do it. When as a culture they have evolved, they do it better than everyone else. But it happens in stages. Historically, Japan, they get stagnant in stages until they have to change. And I think that another change will come where it's just like, you've done as good as you can with this. Let someone else do it. And it's even written into their stories and their culture, the evolution of what they need to be. It's a yin and yang thing. You have an introvert culture and an extrovert culture, and I think the West is a very extrovert culture with larger messages, shorter messages, and the East is a very introverted culture, which is very internal and family based. And we as a world can unite in our conflict, but at the same time we learn from each other. So Japan animation culture of the last 30 years has been consistent to the point where it's grown stagnant, and I think RWBY as a new project will be able to shake things up a bit.
It is. It's exciting. It looks really awesome, guys. Last question. Dead Fantasy, what on earth made you want to just take FF chicks and just kick the crap out of each other?
I talked about the need for popularity, and that was Haloid. Even though I like Halo and I like Metroid, it was my life was going nowhere, and I need to do something to kind of get my foot in the door. Dead Fantasy was the version of that with a project, and again, I like Halo, and I played a lot of it. A lot of it inspired by playing the game. Final Fantasy and Dead or Alive are games I've been playing for years. I love fighting games, and I love Final Fantasy and the characters and the stories. And it's just something which, to so much strength, I made the Dead Fantasy series, and it pretty much earned me everyone I care about, all of my friends who enjoyed it similarly. And so, a lot of the people a lot of my friends that I treasure that don't even live anywhere near me are people that enjoy a project that I made that I wish I could continue to make, but I've already earned enough people that I can move on to something that we can enjoy together.
And RWBY's that.
RWBY will be that project.
Yeah, RWBY's awesome. Well, that's actually all the questions I had today, guys. We definitely we're super excited about RWBY, and if you guys want to check it out, head up Rooster Teeth YouTube. When does the first episode go up?
July 18th.
July 18th. Thanks, guys. For Inglorious Gamer, this is Chris. We know you play.